As we start our exploration into chemistry, the first question we're going to look at is, what is science? The answer is that science is actually two things. The first is that science is a way of knowing. And the second is that science is a process. You are probably most familiar with science being a process, particularly as a process used to acquire knowledge. So we're actually going to start with the other one, which science is a way of knowing. So what does it mean for science to be considered a way of knowing? Science is considered a way of knowing because it's how we figure out phenomena that occur in the natural world. Okay? So a way of knowing includes things like how we obtain information. Do we look at it? Do we collect data? Do we read about it? Do we get it secondhand? So how do we collect information? It's also about methods or skills. So in science, there are skills like measurement, data analysis, experimentation. These are the skills of science that help us know more about it. And the last thing that makes science a way of knowing is that we have goals for its knowledge. So when we learn things through science, we can apply those goals to make better technologies that help humans live better lives, or just increase our understanding of things in the universe. There are also other ways of knowing that you're familiar with. One good example is the way of knowing of religion. So for example, in religion, we obtain knowledge through prayer books or rituals passed down through generations. The skills we use are things like praying and studying religious texts. And the goals are really, overarching understanding of ourselves and our lives and things we can't explain, like what's the meaning of life, what is good, what is evil. Another way of knowing is art. So we obtain our knowledge in art by feelings or experiences, and we use the skills of creativity and expression and empathy to make artwork that answers questions like figuring out what makes something beautiful or what connects a certain piece of art to a certain culture. These are the overarching goals of art. Math is yet another way of knowing, and we obtain our knowledge through axioms or proofs or theorems, using the skills of calculations and equations and number sense to really explore how numbers work in our natural world. And if you think of math, it actually overlaps a lot with what we learn in our science as a way of knowing. So science is not the only way of knowing, it's just one way of knowing. Other than a way of knowing, you're probably more familiar with science as a process. Science is the process that we use to gain scientific knowledge and information, and you've often heard of it as something called the scientific method. We'll explore the scientific method later on in this course, but it's important to remember that really all of this scientific method and science as a process, and even back to science as a way of knowing, is really about asking questions. So we question the natural world, and we use science as a process to figure out the answers to those questions. So the process of science we often think of, in addition to the scientific method, we think of it as the process of experimentation. So what we do in experimentation is we test our hypothesis, or we test our guesses about the world through repeated trials over and over and over again until we can make a complete educated guess using our data as to what happens in the world. Repeated experimentation results in theories and laws. These are things that have been confirmed through multiple trials over and over and over again. Everything in science must be testable, and those tests must be repeatable. So you need to be able to do the same experiment over and over again in order to confirm your results. As soon as one trial or multiple trials disproves a result, it's back to the drawing board for science. One of the things that's unique about science, and also one of my unique pet peeves, is that you can never prove anything in science. As soon as one trial goes bad, and it might happen 100, 200, 1,000 years down the line, the original thought or the original theory can go right out the window. Nothing is proven. I can't tell you how many times in a lab report or in another assignment, a student will say, my data proves this, and therefore my hypothesis is proven. This is not the case. The data supports your hypothesis, it can confirm your hypothesis, but it can never prove your hypothesis because all it takes is one time for something to become unproven. What this means is one of the big things in science. It's that scientific knowledge and science in general is tentative. Our theories, our laws, our predictions, they change as we learn more and more about the natural world and the phenomena that guide them. And this brings me to my final point about science. Science is a human endeavor. That means that even though we're relying on objective data, numbers that say yes or no, at some point someone has to make an inference, and that inference is completely subjective. Additionally, scientists don't work alone. Science is a collaborative process. In other words, scientists pool their data, make scientific arguments with each other, and debate hypotheses, results, conclusions, till they come up with a unified, confirmed theory or law. This is why when you see things like 99.9% of the world's scientists agree that the Earth is warming, you know that most of them have debated, researched, challenged each other. It's not just one person in the world saying, your theory is wrong, and I disagree with you. So that's it for what is science. If you have questions on this topic, you can see me. There's also written notes that are in PowerPoint form on this exact same topic. So if you prefer, you can skip the video and go right to the notes.